Okay, store report for week 41 Australian market on Bricklink, for those of you that are new here. A change of the lead with Noah's Brickshed being the top performing store out with Bricks Warehouse. A good bounce back on total orders this week from the tracked stores, sitting at 659. And a little bit later in this store report, we're going to look at the Australian market as a whole, so stick around for that. The average pretty consistent, back up to 23 this week. As you can see, over the last 6 or 7 weeks, it has been fairly consistent, as has the total orders, which again, a little bit more data of that coming later. My own store again kind of outperformed the average, which is always good and reassuring, and stores like the Brixons and Bricky's Labourer and Schmick Bricks and some others, Amazing Brick Bazaar, all, oh, was that one closed? Maybe not that one, it just doesn't do a lot of orders anyway, but there were a few stores closed, and as we kind of talked about last week, there's a few stores that really should be on this tracker, given that they get 4 or 5 per day over the last while. So we'll maybe expand this a little bit moving forward, but who knows? Anyway, let's jump into the how do I get that to go full screen? Give me a second. I thought it was that. There it is. Okay, so in terms of week 41 overall, we have continued the metrics, which kind of give you a bit of an insight into what's going on. Obviously, top of the shop, Bricks Warehouse, but down to 80 this week, so a bit of a drop back to their week 38 rating, which was the week of which the store integration happened. So next week that one will drop off, but yeah, a little bit of a couple of downward weeks for them, which is interesting. Noah, on the other hand, up 3 places to 71. The final column over here, forgot to mention that, I'm not working out kind of the calculation of what's been put in the store and what has been sold, because that took too long. But essentially, Bricks Warehouse are starting week 41, 17,837 parts down on their previous week, and Noah sitting in second as 71 sales, and that's seen his inventory drop by 3,320. Whether that's kind of an interesting stat is debatable, of course, because it doesn't really account for how much has been sold. But yeah, here we go. So Ashburton in 366 orders, a decent jump up after kind of a couple of bad weeks, bounced back strongly, and they have been uploading as well with 11,298 parts added to the store. Fantechnic, it's a real roller coaster ride for them, down to 58 orders in the week gone. That's a drop of 2, and their inventory has taken a hit of 4,855 parts. Likewise, Pretty Bricks dropping back 1 place, 55 orders is a strong performance this week for them, and their best since we started, which was the week of the integration where they did really well. They're sitting 450 parts down on the week, which means they have done a lot of uploading to keep pace with 55 orders, I would suggest. That should be in green for Goldie Bricks at zone 45. They're back up into their 40s kind of regular mark, that one should be green, both of them. Typical sloppy, it's because of the next screens, but we'll get to that. We are looking at a drop of 4,164 for those, whilst Tanya has put in another 105,596, not accounting for stock going out the store, taking her up to 1.26 million parts. She's really racing along into chasing Bricks Warehouse. Up 1, Brick Womble, 30 orders this week, kind of back into his usual rhythm there, and a slight increase on inventory, 2,192, so a little bit of uploading being done there. Shannon jumping back into the top 10 where he belongs, 30 orders this week, so on a par with Brick Womble, continuing a good little form. That one should be in red as well. All over it today. His average price per piece is working out at 16 cents. With an inventory of 585,712, and as a new entry we don't have last week's figure to compare against. And then I'm fallen to whatever, 28 last week, 27 this week, so 2 downward weeks, not great. And I'm actually 2,909 parts behind the curve. Hopefully I will make some of that back this week, but you never know. Now, interestingly, let's take a closer look at this price per piece averages. 28, 40, 21, 45, 64, 44, 54, 19, 16 and 29. Remember that, we'll come back to it, sort of. So, thanks to Julian at Brick Metrics for BL Metrics, I should say, for supplying me with some overall market analytics. And you might want to just pause the video here and spend some time having a look at this, but I'm going to talk through some of it. This is the year to date 2025, so January through to end of September, which looks terrible because of the account integration, of course. But what you will see is we've broken down new parts sold total, and the value of those, what that equates to the price per piece, new minifigures sold and their value, used parts sold, their value, what that means for their price per piece, and used minifigures sold and their value. So there's some big numbers, let's be honest. We are looking at the total number of parts sold so far in the Australian stores this year to the end of September is 8,685,855. That is a lot, with a value of 1.5 and a smidge million Australian dollars. And as you can see from this column, the price per piece has been pretty steady at 18 across the board, although it did take a little bit of a jump up in September, but other than that it's been pretty consistent. Fairly large market, as you can see, with May and July being the standout months to date. In terms of minifigures, like not quite the same in terms of May and July. What we're looking at there is really March and July being up there, but June as well. And the value, 29,002 minifigures sold new over the months to date, and that's got a value of 322,195. In terms of used, we've got significantly less market share at 2.8 million, with a value of $694,881, and the price per piece there kind of jumps around quite a bit month to month, 25, 24, 26, 23, 25, 26 and so on, giving us an average which we'll talk about over the page. And in terms of used minifigures, there's actually more of those sold for a better value. So there you go, used minifigures outperform new minifigures in the Australian market on both quantity and value. But as you can see, pretty steady. February was pretty abject, September was definitely pretty terrible, but knowing that kind of January, February and maybe September for me were some of the better months, that is very interesting to see. So what does that mean kind of top line? Well, the average price per piece for new averages out at 18 cents, whilst on used that averages out at 24 cents. And the percentage split of parts versus new versus used, I should say, for the market scale is 24% used, 76% new parts. So 76% of the Australian market is new, whereas in terms of value, 70% of the total value of the market to the end of September is coming from new parts, 30% of that is coming from used. As you can see, whilst it only has 24% of the market share, it holds 30% of the market value, which does speak to the rarity and scarcity of some parts. In terms of our stores, of which I'm not sure how many there are right now, but it kind of fluctuates between the 700 and something stores across the country. Total inventory value, including parts and minifigures, against the 6 months average puts total Lego Bricklink value at 11,331,742. Now, when you apply store value to that, that drops to 9,012,327. What that tells you is an awful lot of stores are operating under the 6 month average. Opportunities are everywhere. And to the year to date, end of September, total Australian store orders are 63,199, and I have not worked out what my total orders for this year to date equate to in terms of a percentage, but I certainly will be. And that's it, kind of some top line figures on the marketplace. As you can see, 18 versus 24, 76 over 24, 70 over 30. Some interesting numbers ticking along there, but ultimately these are the top performing 10 stores in Australia so far this year, and we will keep an eye on some of the others on the periphery of this just in case they sneak in, but as ever, if you're loving the store reports, leave a comment down below, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, all of those things. I know I said I was going to do this as part of the normal vlog this week, but thanks to Julien over at BL Metrics, I thought it was well worth dropping in a little bit more. And if you want to get involved with BL Metrics, the discount code for your first month is on screen now. Head over there, sign up for a month, give it a spin. If you only use a month, you only use a month, but I think you'll find it's an incredibly powerful business tool, not least of all kind of the general data, but certainly store arbitrage, smart pricing, price locking, set assessments, and all of those things. So head over there. Thanks for watching.